Hello, welcome back to the Red Devils Den podcast. We're going to be trying to make this sort of more exciting than the last few Manchester United games. We're going to be talking about the Chelsea game, Crystal Palace game, and the derby coming up on the weekend. So, sort of kick us off, United Resurgent, what were your thoughts on the Chelsea game, just briefly?
The Chelsea match was a little bit of a non-event. United approached it defensively, as I expected we would. It made sense in that match. We had a 6-point lead on Chelsea going in. Like I said in the preview, I think the most important thing for that was having that same 6-point lead when we exited Stamford Bridge. So I was reasonably satisfied with that result and even the performance. If Scott McTominay picks a slightly better pass, we go ahead and win the game 1-0, and everyone's praising Ollie for a wonderful smash and grab at the bridge. So I don't think there's anything too problematic with that match, but obviously in the context of what we know now with Palace, it's a disappointing sequence of matches.
Yeah, I think that Scott McTominay pass was a little bit, more difficult than it looked because I I saw a screenshot, and it actually was quite difficult. But yeah, there was a couple of chances. I mean, not many. They definitely had more XG. I think they had overwent. We had like 0.5. So in terms of chances, I think they had the better chances, and you'd probably have to call them a better team because of that. But yeah, United Apollo. What was your sort of thoughts on the game?
I thought in terms of our general play, we played really well. There's that stat going around of that we press of how much we press them high up the pitch, that we won the ball that many times, that we haven't done for like 5 years. The issue was the lack of execution in the final third. Like we won the ball back so many times, but it was just our execution in the final pass that was the issue. So yeah, I can't knock the performance side of it too much, but you can comment on the execution in the final third, because that was the problem. If that had been there, we probably would have won that game.
Yeah, as Apollo says, I think it was 11 pressures in the 11 successful pressures in the final third to win the ball back for the first time in 5 years since under LVG against Aston Villa. So our pressing game stood out even before we knew the stats. I think a lot of us were commenting on Twitter that it was one of the best pressing performances we've had under Ollie. So there's definitely some pluses to it.
Yeah, people say things like he has no tactics, but while he's able to coach the team to, press like that, then I think that's a positive. But um, Tom, it's your first time since the first podcast, so what was your sort of thoughts on that
Yeah,
Chelsea game?
I think as a team in these big games, we're at a weird stage. We're not last season the counter-attacking team, because teams aren't giving us that space this season, but we're not quite ready to go out and sort of dominate and impose ourselves and sort of sustain attacks in their final third. We're at a really weird stage, which probably explains all the nil-nils. That defensively, our structure is obviously good. We're keeping the clean sheets. We're not conceding loads of chances, but in terms of attack, we're probably just not quite clinical enough, and we're not creating loads of chances. So I think if we were to have had Sancho in the team and maybe get another striker, and we were still having these problems, I would be a bit more worried. But I think we're just at such a weird stage of this transition that it's not too much of. I think last night was more of a problem with the 0-0, that we played Palace away and we just didn't look like creating anything. But we'll come on to Palace. But yeah, I think away at Chelsea, tough place to go. You probably take the 0-0 and the performance, but next season we're probably expecting a bit more from them games in terms of us actually imposing ourselves on the game and winning them.
Yeah, I think so. Corey, can you sort of build that? I know you're a bit ill, so you probably won't be speaking too much, but just give us your man of the match if you want as well.
For the Chelsea game, I thought Luke Shaw was a very good player. I think he's more. I think as soon as Telles has come in, Shaw has had the kick that he needs, because he's been like United's first choice for first couple of years. And since Telles has come in, everyone backed Telles to be the starting left back. But Luke Shaw has put out all these amazing performances nobody expects, and he's improved defensively and attackingly.
In a lot of ways, he seems like the anti Anthony Martial, where whenever some competition shows up for Luke Shaw, where it was Brandon Williams in the middle of last season and then Tellez coming in the summer, all of a sudden Luke Shaw's play goes up a level. And as we've talked about previously with Martial, it seems whenever we sign a striker, his play seems to go down a level. So it's interesting to see how different players react to similar situations when their place in the team is challenged.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Shaw, if you look at him, his quotes over the last 6 to 12 months, he's been a massive advocate of squad depth and competition. And I think, as Corey said, his place in the team has been cemented for 4 or 5 years now. He's never really had anybody to challenge him. And with all the injuries he's had, now he knows if he's not looking after himself, if he's not keeping himself fit, then he's not going to play. He's not going to be in the team because Tellez is going to come in. So, yeah, I think them sort of signings are so key, and yeah, he's been a revelation this season, and he's probably been our best player.
Other than maybe Bruno and Rashford, there's a strong argument that Shaw's probably the next name on the team sheet in the form he's in. He's been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he had Player of the Season a couple of seasons ago, didn't he? Overall, the club had a really bad season, but he was sort of the one that stood out with Lindelof. It was probably most consistent. Maybe Pogba was in as well, but yeah, to be fair, he didn't have that good a season. No one did, but this season he's massively improved, no doubt about that. And I think, as Corey said, it's a lot of that is to do with Tellez coming in and that competition. And I think his mentality to be able to deal with that is brilliant. So yeah, so we've spoken about the Chelsea game. Just wanted to talk about that briefly, which we have. In terms of the Crystal Palace game, which was yesterday. I don't know when you're not watching, but yesterday, as in the time of recording, United Resurgent, do you want to start us off again? What was your thoughts on it?
Oh God, where do I start? That was one of the most horrific matches of football I can remember in the post-Sir Alex Ferguson era. I was thinking at the end of the first half, in my opinion, there was a 10-minute span where we played well. The match kind of seemed to start off with Palace putting us under pressure, and then we had that sequence where there was the Rashford shot, there was the Matic shot, which I think was our only shot on target in the half, and then Greenwood had a go as well. And so it looked like we were about to maybe get something going, and then for 25 minutes it was absolutely horrific after that. Neither side really created anything, and I thought to myself at halftime, okay, that was horrible. There's no way the second half could be any worse than that. And I was somehow wrong about that. The second half was, I think, probably as bad as anything under Louis van Gaal. I can't even begin to put into words how bad of a performance that was. You have to consider this wasn't just Crystal Palace at their best, and we were struggling against them. This was Crystal Palace without Wilfred Zaha, their best player. It was a shambles of a performance. The team never got going. You could see it in the first 15 minutes. There were misplaced passes from everybody: Harry Maguire, Eric Bailly, Nemanja Matic. Even the most reliable players were doing the basics wrong. And ultimately, we lacked cutting edge. We lacked the ability to string 5 passes together for chunks of the match. And Palace basically got what they deserved. They got the point, and we can't complain about that at all. There's no bad refereeing calls. There's no, if the luck fell a little differently, then the shot would have gone in, or the keeper played a blinder. None of that happened. That performance was horrific. It was completely on all of the players and the manager. And the team has to take responsibility for that and respond in the next one.
Yeah, 100%. So, Corey, what was your sort of reaction to the game? Because obviously, I know you obviously weren't a fan of it. What did you think?
Yeah, first half, it was boring. The whole match was boring. We just couldn't get anything going. I think the few corners we had, very rarely, they was actually working.
Yeah, even when we had sort of chances to create a chance, the players like Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, they sort of just weren't putting off those sort of passes that they usually do. I felt that we just weren't getting the ball to the forwards often enough, and when we did, the likes of Rashford, Greenwood, they were being really wasteful. Not exactly Cavani, because he's a striker. He sort of likes to get in the box, and when he was on the ball, I don't think it was too bad.
See, I have to slightly disagree with you there.
Mm.
You say the forwards were being wasteful, and I've seen criticism of Marcus Rashford and Mason Greenwood on social media following the match, but really they didn't have many chances. I mean,
No, yeah.
they didn't waste. I mean, yes, Marcus Rashford probably should have put the shot around the 15-minute mark on target. Yes, Mason Greenwood could have done a little bit better keeping his shot down, but they had one or two shots the entire match. So I don't think we can really blame them for not having 100% shooting accuracy in a given game. I think, honestly, the biggest issue with this match, and I say this as someone who's very routinely critical of Paul Pogba, we missed Paul Pogba really badly yesterday because Bruno Fernandes was not on his game and nobody else in the team was able to get the ball through the lines into the final third and create chances. So it was back to last season in a way when we had Andreas Pereira and Jesse Lingard in midfield and we couldn't break down a low block. And I think that was the bigger issue more than the forwards. So I think the criticism of the forwards is probably a little bit over the top that I've seen on social media, at least.
Yeah, I agree with you because I watched Bruno last couple of games. He just looks like he's tired, he's exhausted, he doesn't know what to do, he's frustrated, he wants to score goals, he wants the ball, but nobody's creating anything. It just looks like they're unhappy in that when they 90 minutes. And there was during the match where Rashford was offside with a header. Harry and Rashford was arguing. It's like you're on the same team. You're not. If you're like this arguing, you're not gonna get results.
I mean,
same page.
Yeah, I mean that sort of happens during football matches, and I mean you know that. But yeah, they were arguing, but come on, that sort of happens. And United was urgent saying he disagreed with me about the forwards being wasteful. I meant they were being wasteful when they got the ball, not necessarily with chances, but.
And
when the midfielders were getting the ball to them, which wasn't happening very often, they were losing the ball.
And another thing that's been an issue for us is the midfield crisis, because all we've got to work with is Matic and Fred. McTominay was on the bench, but when we're used to having Fred one side, McTominay, and Pogba, either Fred, McTominay, Pogba. Those are the three centre mids we normally use. Just because we had Matic and Fred, they don't play together, so that just breaks the system down.
Yeah. So sort of builds on that. United Apollo. What was your sort of overall thoughts on that game yesterday?
The biggest thing for me was the seeming lack of effort. Like no one was really busting a gut to make runs. They weren't. It just looked tired in all respects. And I'm not saying that as an excuse. If anything, I'm saying it's a criticism that the effort wasn't there. Nobody seemed to be on it. And the only person who really seemed to properly be putting the effort in is James when he came on. And other than that, I didn't really see any real intent to try and raise the pace of the game, intent to drag your team forward through an action. We didn't really see a lot of anything. It was just like it was an incredibly boring game. Not a lot happened.
Yeah, you mentioned when Dan James come on, he changed the situation. I was confused why we didn't start James, because he had three goals and assists in the last 3 appearances he's had. So why wouldn't you start him against Crystal Palace? Because we've got City, which is our biggest game.
I expect him. I think he'll start against City, and I think that's why Ole didn't start him.
I think a big part of it was the fact that against City we're going to have a lot more space on the counter attack, whereas against Crystal Palace we're playing against obviously 2 banks of 4, which honestly at times collapsed with their strikers came back and it almost became 2 banks of 5. So I think Ole realized there wasn't going to be a lot of space and decided to go with players who are a little bit more, typically at least, a little bit more useful in possession, such as Mason Greenwood. So, and plus Dan James hasn't played a lot for a year, and then he comes in and plays, I think, 3 or 4 matches pretty much consecutively. So he needed a break at some point. You can't just ask him to play every 3 days for 2 months and hope that it's going to work out. It just won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So Tom, what would you sort of say was the biggest thing wrong with that performance?
I think Apollo touched on it with the effort, and if there's one thing with this squad and this group of players that you can say is they never throw the towel in. There's never a lack of effort, and to me last night they looked physically and mentally just fatigued, and I think that also lines up with the sort of bit of an injury list we've got at the moment. When you look at, we've got Van der Beek, Mata, Martial, Pogba, who weren't available. This is the point of the season where Ollie would have wanted to call on your Van der Beeks and your Matters to come in and almost take the workload off of Rashford, off of Bruno. And you could just see last night that they just looked like they were done. And that's not something you can often say with this group of players. So I think the sooner we can get more bodies back into the squad, the better. But yeah, that was the biggest thing. There was just a lack of intensity, and this group is usually, you don't associate that with them. So I'm not too worried, but I think the sooner we can get bodies back into the squad and almost give the likes of Bruno and Rashford a rest, the better.
I think this is where the argument for Sancho and the new striker comes in. Because if we've got an injury crisis, we need those extra players to cover. Because Sancho, he's a good creative player. He's also a very good potential striker going forward. So if we have it on the right, who can help the likes of Cavani and Martial to score some goals, I think that would help United next season to hopefully try and bridge the gap even more, if not challenge for the title.
Yeah, definitely. And then you can put Sancho on the left as well, and that gives Rashford the rest he needs, and you can go for something like Sancho and then Greenwood on the other side. And it just gives you different options, doesn't it?
I take the point about having all of or needing additional squad depth, but one thing that comes to mind constantly for me when we talk about additional signings is last week in the Europa League against Sociedad, we were 4-0 up from the first leg, and Bruno Fernandes played 45 minutes. Marcus Rashford played 45 minutes. I understand it wasn't enough to drastically affect their performance level for the weekend, but it is miles on legs for the season. And it's not just a case, I think, of us needing to sign more players. It's also a case of the manager needing to be more willing to take a little bit of a chance and say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to play Bruno Fernandes this match. I'll take a chance with whoever I have fit in midfield, or I'll change the formation, go 3-5-2, so that I don't have to play any of the kids if we're running out of midfielders. Just, he has to work around it a little bit. He can't just say, okay, I need to sign 3 more world-class players. I understand that would definitely benefit us, but at the same time, we also need to make better use of what we have, as you can see with the situation with Donny van de Beek before he got injured.
Yes, when the first leg ended, we was 4-0 up, and then the second leg, I was wondering, why are we using Bruno? Why can't we just put him on the bench? Use like Ahmad, or switch the formation like you said, because it makes sense. Ahmad might not get as many games, the same as Shoretire. So it makes sense to use them whilst we can, because 4-0 cushion at home as well. You would think you would back United, even if we can see 2 goals. We're still going through.
When Ollie was asked about the team news, for that match, he said, you don't want to end up in a situation where you're going to halftime a goal or 2 down. And I understand that. But honestly, if that was the worst case scenario, if he was worried about, we were 4-0 up, take that chance. You can sub on Bruno if you need to, if we're 1-0 down at halftime. I really don't think it was necessary for them to play 45 minutes of that match. And I think that's contributing to the fatigue moving forward.
I think that going on that second Sociedad game, I think the best call was to start them on the bench, and if we do need a goal back, then sub them on, because you can't start them, and then they're going to be tired. Where I'm going with this. You have to use those players wisely. You can't just say, I want you to play every single match of the season. I don't care if you're injured, you're still playing. You can't do that.
Yeah, and I think Ollie, he said after the game, the reason was that he just sort of wanted to keep them sort of ticking over, and he didn't want them to be sort of too almost wound up in training the next day and overdo it. So he thought, I don't think a half was needed. I think maybe off the bench for 20 minutes, half hour. but going a week between games is a long time in the world of professional football. And sort of playing myself, I know that I probably would have wanted to play as well if I was in the same situation, but at the end of the day, that's the manager's job. I think every player wants to play every game, but I think it's the manager's job, isn't it, to manage his squad, to monitor the minute. And we obviously know Bruno and Rashford have probably played the most minutes out of everybody. So almost giving them unnecessary minutes, it's probably not the best idea, but I can half understand why he's done it, but maybe not for a half.
In the situation we now find ourselves in, I think Ole needs to say during the international break, right, these guys aren't going on the internet, aren't going to their international matches, but they need a rest. I think he's got to say, you're not going. We need you here resting, because players need a break.
I take your point, but I don't see that happening. Given I saw the news earlier today, Portugal have moved their match during the international break to a country where I think they moved it to Turin so that people wouldn't have to quarantine when they come back to England afterwards. So
Ole did mention though the possibility of stopping players going for fitness. So he is thinking about it, but a case of who that applies to is a different question.
If we couldn't stop Bruno from playing 45 minutes in a match where we were 4-0 up, I'm really not optimistic about our chances of stopping him from going to go play for his country, but I hope you're right.
I mean,
I see where you both come from this. Like, I understand both points of view. One saying we need our best player at the club, because if something happens in international duty, then that's going to do so much damage on us. But on the other hand, how are you going to stop Bruno from saying, no, I want to represent my country? You can't do nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, England, we're playing, I think we're playing San Marino and Albania. It's like, why you're playing against a bunch of postmen? Why do they need to go and do that? Just it's completely pointless, honestly.
You probably the likes of Phil Foden, or then I can't see Rashford playing it, starting those kinds of games. Maybe on the bench for, was it Armina?
Yeah, Albania. I think we've got San Marino and Albania or something like that.
Yeah, so it's like Strakosha and goal. That should be easy for us as England.
Yeah. So I sort of wanted to talk about, like, we've drew 0-0 3 games in a row, which is like, it's like 3.5, 4 hours without a goal, something like that. So what was our thoughts on, like, how we improve, how we score goals, how we break down low blocks, and how we more consistently perform? So United Resurgent, how do you think we sort of improve in that area?
Well, I think it comes down to three big factors: two short-term, one long-term. Long-term signings, that's obviously the answer here. The Glazers need to back the manager and improve the squad. But short-term, right now, trying to focus on the situation we're in, there's two things that we can do, which is, number one, trust a wider array of players so that we don't have people who've played every match and are getting leggy the way that we've been discussing. If when Mata is back, when Van de Beek is back, give them more minutes. Tell Bruno, okay, you know what? If you're starting against Milan the first leg, you're not playing in the Premier League on the weekend, play Van de Beek. There's different ways around it, right? You have to ultimately rotate more, I think, is one solution. And the other part of it is it comes down to coaching, I think. We need to have more established patterns of play. I'm not going on about that stupid individual brilliance point that people on Twitter seem to constantly make. I don't think it's just that Ollie just says, okay, go out there and have fun. But I do think that there are certain patterns that players like to fall back on that they can use to try to pry open a low block. And those patterns for us, I think, we don't have as big of a toolbox as say Pep Guardiola's Man City or Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool when everyone's fit. And I think we need to work on adding some more patterns, some more tactical variations. It's not that we don't have those, it's that we need to have more of them. So I think both things ultimately come down to Ollie. He needs to rotate more and he needs to work on providing more patterns of play, although that's going to be difficult given that there's not a lot of time on the training ground given we're playing twice a week.
Mm. Yeah, Corey, what do you think? How do we score more goals, and what sort of holes in the team are there? How would you replace them? I know you talked about Sancho, so
Um, I think we should try switching the players around. Obviously, Cavani's just come back, but we've got Amad Diallo. Obviously, we can't starting just quite yet, but we've got Amad, we've got Martial, we've got Greenwood, we've got James, we've got Rashford on the left. If we did use Rashford as a striker, it would probably be two up front, somebody who's next to Rashford, because when we played Rashford as a lone striker, he wasn't performing as he does on the left wing. So if we do the formation with the two strikers, I think that might give us some more attacking options. And then we have the wing backs with Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw. And then we have three central halves who can help the defenders. And then whoever's in midfield, like McTominay, Fred, Pogba, who can help Bruno create and drive the team forward. And you have that Nemanja Matic personnel who can read the game and also help the defense.
He's come up with a full tactical masterclass here. He's changed the formation, three centre backs, wing backs. I like it. So I don't know. I'm not sure if Ollie would just change the formation, because we've been playing 4-2-3-1 for quite a while. I know we played Diamond 4-3-3 in Ollie's first season. We've played a Diamond and 5 at the back a couple of times, quite a few times as well.
I think Corey has a very good point here, honestly. And it kind of comes back to what I was saying as well. Some kind of tactical variation, whether that's in patterns of play, or it could be in even changing the formation, as Corey was suggesting. But ultimately, give opposition managers and players something else to think about and prep for. The problem with sticking to 4-2-3-1 constantly is that our limited set of tools when we're in certain situations is getting exposed more readily. If you change the formation around, we've tried the diamond before, we've done 3-5-2, we've done 4-3-3, that might give potentially other teams something new to think about. And I think that is one potential path forward as well. It's one of those things where what we're doing right now is horribly stale, and the players are too tired to kind of work their way out of that in a sense. And we need to provide some kind of variation or wrinkle that opposition teams haven't seen before now.
So, Tom, what would you sort of say, if you were to pick 2 or 3 signings to sort of help us, score more goals against these sort of low block teams? I know we got Van der Beek and stuff who were injured, but when that sort of thing happens, you need players who are there who can come in and break them down. I know we talked about Sancho. So, what sort of players do you think we need to sort of help us score goals?
I think the two that stand out to me is a midfielder who can just keep the play ticking over. I think that's something that really latch them probably does in most games against the deep block. You've just got to keep moving the ball, keep going from side to side, and then you work your way in. I don't think we have that holding it. I think Jimmy Garner is probably what we need, but 5 years older maybe. That technical midfielder who doesn't give the ball away, just keeps it moving side to side. It looks easy, but it's so vital in that team. You got your Rodri at Man City, sort of Jordan Henderson, Fabinho at Liverpool, who they're so vital to the team. And that's probably what Luke Shaw was talking about the other day when he said about the stats. Like, their stats won't be amazing, but they're so vital to a team. And we probably don't have that at the moment. And obviously that the right wing situation is a problem that we've had for years now. And Greenwood does a good job out there, but he's not a right winger. He's not going to have chalk on his heels and be hugging the touchline and creating that problem. So they're probably the two that you're looking at to really improve us. But I think the positives out of the last 3 games are it's 3 clean sheets in a row. That's probably a big positive when we've been looking fairly shaky defensively in recent weeks. I think, 10 clean sheets in 14 games now for Dean Henderson. Another massive positive. So I think there are positives, but yeah, I think the midfielder and the wide man are the two that I'm looking at to really improve us.
Can I just jump in a minute? People are on about we need new midfield role. If we forgot about Jesse Lingard, what he's done for West Ham, he's created a lot of chances. He's also scoring goals. That's what we need at United. Somebody who can create goals and also score goals. When Lingard comes back in the summer, only has to think, do we give Lingard a chance, or do we say, I'm sorry, thank you for your service, I think it's time you leave?
I absolutely disagree with you that Jesse Lingard is a potential solution to the problem that we're having. Jesse Lingard's thriving at West Ham because they're playing with tremendous space in front of them. Teams aren't setting up with two banks of four against West Ham United, and he's benefiting from that. We've seen Jesse Lingard against low blocks with United, and the product was not good enough, which is why we signed Bruno Fernandes and Donny van de Beek. So I think going back to 5 years of evidence makes more sense than looking at the last 5-6 games for West Ham. I really do think Jesse Lingard's time here is over, but hopefully he can get us a good 25-30 million on his way out the door.
So we in United's formation, where would you, if Jesse Lingard was to turn into a master player, why would he not fit into United? Is he not a good cam? Is he not a good right winger?
It's not so much that he's not good in any particular role. He's decent at kind of playing across the front four or front three behind the striker, I would say. The bigger problem with Jesse Lingard is he doesn't have the vision to find the passes that Bruno Fernandes looks for. He's very limited in that sense, and he needs greater space to operate. And the side effect of that is that you end up needing, or you end up struggling to create chances when the opposition packs two banks of four, makes it very tight and makes spaces hard to come by. So the problem is I don't think Jesse Lingard fits with United regardless of what position you play him at. I think ultimately his time here is done.
Yeah, I don't think anyone says he's a bad player or anything. He's just at West Ham, he's in a set of circumstances that suit him, whereas at United, he's not in that set of circumstances. And there are plenty of players out there who need certain conditions to thrive, and he's in a set of conditions that really suits him right now.
Yeah, and I think what level of performance, with all due respect to West Ham, the level of performance acceptable at West Ham is not the same level of performance that is acceptable at United. And I think there's a different style of play, there's different setup, there's a different system. So I think he goes to West Ham, he's sort of the main man now. He's the big fish in a little pond. At United, he's just another player. And I think Lingard's maybe the sort of person that needs to be the main man in a setup.
Okay, so moving on to the Manchester City, Manchester Derby preview on the weekend. United Resurgent, what was your thoughts on that? Because obviously absolutely massive game. What are your sort of expectations going into it?
My expectations haven't changed just because of the form that City's in. I said earlier on that we needed 5 points, but I would have taken a draw against City. And I still think against City, I'll take a draw right now. 0-0 again is fine by me. So I just want to get something out of this match because most of the teams that are involved in the top 4 hunt won't. And for us, the big thing now is making sure we secure top 4. So I'll take a point. Obviously, a win would be great for morale and would kind of get the season back on track, get us reoriented moving forward. But I think a draw wouldn't be something I'd be too unhappy with.
Yeah, United Apollo, what was your sort of expectations going into the derby?
I kind of, you have to acknowledge how good City are. So I just want to go into the game and everyone be up for it. So not have another lethargic performance like against Palace. We get steamrollers if we played like that against City. We just need to have everyone go into it, be up for it, and then we'll see what happens. Like, it's a lot easier to accept a bad result if you actually have the proper performance and you put the effort in.
Yeah, I agree. Corey, what are your thoughts going into it?
I obviously want us to win, not only because it's the derby, but to take some points off City and use them for our benefit. But if we play well and get a 0-0 draw, I'll take that as a positive for us playing well and for not conceding more goals, because obviously we can't concede goals, but we need to perform well. I think if everyone plays well and we can shut down City for the full 90 minutes, I think that'll be the positive going into the future games in the Prem and for the Europa League competition.
Yeah, you talk about shutting them out. I just hope it's not another 0-0, to be honest. I'm not sure I can take another one. I've gone a long time without scoring. I just want to go, even if it's for them. Like, it's excitement, isn't it? Yeah, no, I'm joking.
One of the things actually, sorry, during the last match, one of the things that occurred to me was, you remember towards kind of the middle of our winning run, the opposition would always score first on the road and then United would get going. There was a part of me during the Palace match that was actually thinking, if Jordan Ayew scores here, I think maybe our performance might kick on a little bit. And it's really sad that that's the position that we find ourselves in, where we're so starved for excitement that we're joking around about the opposition scoring to get us going.
Well, why don't we just score an own goal and then we can just score a goal ourselves? Why don't we just do that from now on? If we want to, let's just do
that. So, Tom, what was your thoughts going into the derby?
It's definitely going to be a tough game. 21 wins in a row is just absolutely ridiculous. It's boring, but no, we know Pep will, I say fear us, but he won't let us counter-attack. He'll probably play, then two holding midfielders, and he won't leave us any space to counter-attack them. So maybe that takes away from their attacking threat, because this current City team, they're not creating as many chances as, their 17-18 team. So I think we can definitely cause them problems, but I think also it's helpful that it's technically a home game. There's no long travel. We don't have to go down to London or anything like that. It's a nice local one. I'd expect there to be more energy. I think, we'll probably go on to the team, but I think, James will come back in, McTominay will come back in. They offer a completely different set of skills to the likes of Matic and maybe Greenwood. So I definitely expect us to compete and put in a good performance. It's going to be very tough, though. I don't think there's any questions about that. For us to get anything out of the game, it's going to be, maybe we need a little bit of luck, but I think we'll do well.
It's a battle of the 21s. They've had 21 consecutive wins. We've had 21 matches without defeat on the road, so it'll be interesting to see which record falls.
Yeah, I think we're missing Pogba a lot in these. We're talking about low blocks and breaking them down, but I think in big games we're sort of missing him as well, because I remember that Liverpool game in the Cup, I was sort of fearing another 0-0 going into it, but I saw Pogba on the team sheet in the double pivot, and I was sort of thinking, if we can defend well, I know we conceded 2 goals, but we scored 3 goals. So, I think we just need some sort of to take the ball, get it forward, someone who can pass well, shoot well. I think we talked before about midfielders who could sort of replace him if he leaves, but I do think we are sort of missing him at the moment. But yeah, we've sort of gone for our thoughts on it. How about the lineup? I think we'll move on to that. We've established, Dean Henderson is probably going to be back now for the next 5-6 games, because he's had a baby. He's not had a baby. His wife's had a baby back in Spain, so he's gone back there for a while. So we know Dean Henderson will be back for this. Corey, what are your sort of thoughts on him? Do you think he can sort of stake a claim for a regular starting place now?
It depends how well he performs. How many games has he played in the Prem so far this season? Like 2 or 3? Yeah,
something like that. 3, I think.
I think he's performed very well, but I think City's going to be the toughest match he's played against. Not only because they're top, but because he's going to be facing the likes of Sterling, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Jesus. They've got a lot of attacking options. If Dean can keep a clean sheet or make some very good saves, I think that would boost his confidence to potentially overtake David to be the #1 goalkeeper. It's like, I was watching the game yesterday. It was like Patrick Van Aanholt's last chance of the game. he pulled off that amazing save, even though Van Aanholt was offside. Dean Henderson did not know that. If Henderson didn't make that save, we would have lost more than a point. We would have lost more confidence. We would be fighting for top 4, not for second place.
Yeah, 100%. I know United Resurgence quite an advocate of Dean Henderson coming back. Do you think he can sort of stake a claim?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think this is the chance he's been waiting for. I'm not sure, even if he keeps 5 clean sheets, 15 saves a match, I'm not sure Ole is going to let him keep the spot when De Gea is back. But for the time being, it's the chance that he needs to show how good he is. And as Corey was alluding to, that save at the end of the match really showed that he has the concentration required to be the keeper at United. And now he's in for a very challenging set of fixtures. If you look at it, Palace was the easy one. Now he's got 5 matches against Man City, Leicester in the FA Cup, 2 against Milan in the Europa League, who are second in Serie A, and then West Ham, who are currently 4th since the Chelsea-Liverpool match hasn't been played. So he's playing against basically Champions League, currently teams that are in Champions League spots. And on the basis of that, we're going to see how well he holds up to top-level strikers, and I think he's going to perform really well. And I think, as I've said previously, I think he's going to stake a claim to be the number 1 next season.
While I agree that De Gea will come back into the team when he comes back, I think that's because Ole's trying to juggle like maintaining De Gea's form, so someone might be interested in him, maintaining a market for him. I think that the long-term plan is still in place for giving Henderson game time. So while this 5-match run or 6-match run or whatever it's going to be, while he won't be the number 1 at the end of it, what it will show Ole is that if he's got what it takes to be the number 1 next season. So this 5-game period really does have value, even if it's not in the immediate short term.
I think it's going to
sure.
develop Dean mentally, physically, and also give him the ability to make these impressive saves at the end. He's like, he can get down very quickly. If I was David, he won't get down that quickly, because I think Dean's got more ability in his reflexes and his speed. As David, he was just look at the ball. It's like that free kick in the Spain World Cup when Ronaldo took it. He just looked at the ball, go top ends. If I was Dean, he would at least try to save it. So there's difference between David and Dean, but David's been the number 1 choice for United for like 10 years. Dean's like this. He's had like 2 good seasons at Sheffield. If he can get like 5 games, massive good games, I think he could be United's number 1 next season if somebody comes and takes David off us.
I mean, this is his chance because he hasn't had a time like this before. You're talking about sort of the differences between De Gea and Henderson. I think probably the biggest difference is how brave he is at coming off his line. He's sort of like he's a sweeper keeper really. Where De Gea is sort of, I don't know if they call him the glue. I think that's a bit harsh, but Dean Henderson is definitely sort of more, he definitely comes off his line more and he's going to catch crosses. But yeah, Tom, what's your sort of opinion on that? And what do you think he can come back and take De Gea's spot?
Yeah, I think I'm a massive fan of Henderson. I think we saw yesterday the difference that he's had is when you're at Man United, you have 85 minutes of a game where you're not doing anything, and then suddenly, bang, there's a 1-on-1 and you've got to be alert and you've got to save it. And he showed last night he's capable of doing that. I think there's a massive decision coming up soon, though, at the club, Ole, whoever's got to make it on what we do with De Gea, because he's the highest paid player in the Premier League. You can't just have him sitting on the bench every week to play Dean Henderson. So there's a real big decision coming up probably this summer on what we do moving forward. And I'm probably backing Henderson to win that battle, and hopefully he does, because he really does look like the complete package for a goalkeeper, and he's still only 23 as well, which for a goalkeeper is incredibly young. So yeah, he's doing well. He's doing well. I really hope this next run of games, he keeps growing and developing in his confidence, keeps being brave, keeps doing the right things, and hopefully he can pick a few clean sheets up along the way.
Tom, you mentioned the fact that De Gea is on 375k a week, the highest paid player in the Premier League, and you can't sit him on the bench for Dean Henderson. But I think part of the appeal of the project under Ollie was that it's not about how much money you make or how big of a name you are. It's about who's providing the most on the pitch. And if Dean Henderson shows that, and you can't find a taker for De Gea, I think you have to sit him on the bench just like we did with Alexis Sanchez. I really don't think that his wage packet should be a factor in this. It's going to be a factor in who's willing to buy him and things like that. But I don't think in team selection, Ollie should be considering that at all. And if he is, I think it's a major, major problem.
Yeah, fair enough. So sort of moving on, we talked about Dean Henderson. Can he come back and take his place? He's got this big chance now, and he could take it, could not. We'll see. But moving on to sort of the defense, I think we know sort of mostly what it's going to be. Maguire, probably Shaw. Maybe there's a chance for Telles to, stake a claim as well. Wan-Bissaka. But I think that other centre back is sort of the one which I'm sort of thinking, is it going to be Bay or is it going to be Lindelof? So I don't know what Corey's thoughts on that.
I think it might be Lindelof because we used Bailly last night. Whether it was tactical for Ollie, rest Lindelof and used Bailly because obviously Man City have the wonderful strength of the squad. Palace is a slight downgrade. So if we used Eric Bailly and left Lindelof out completely because of Man City, I think it would be Wan-Bissaka by Lindelof, Maguire, and then Luke Shaw.
Yeah, I think it'll be Lindelof as well because I don't know what you guys' thoughts on the Lindelof Bay situation, but I think normally these sort of games Lindelof comes back in. I think there's a reason because obviously City press really high, they press really intensely, and Bay is sort of going to be more difficult for him to deal with that because he's not as good on the ball as Lindelof. And when they come out, you need someone like Lindelof who can
definitely
play those passes into the forwards through the lines. Yeah, and he even got a couple of assists as well, which I don't think Bay has had. I think on the other day, didn't he? But that was sort of accidental. But he's had proper assists, like balls over the top to Rashford and stuff like that. So yeah, and I think when you're playing when you're going to be playing a little bit deeper, like we probably will, it's easier for Lindelof because you don't need Bay's pace when you're sort of sitting deep most of the time. But yeah, so moving on to the midfield, I wonder what United Apollo's thoughts was on who he played at.
I don't think we have a huge amount of choice, to be honest, from the players that are fit.
No.
I think we have to go McTominay and Fred. I don't think this is a game for Matic at all. So yeah, I play the usual big game double pivot of McTominay and Fred because we really don't have much choice.
Yeah. I don't really think there's much of a claim for Matic to come in. Sometimes I sort of think we need his ability to sort of play balls through the lines, but in these sort of big games. But I'm not sure. He hasn't really looked on it recently. Certainly not even this season. I think that sort of lockdown period last season, that was probably his best time in a United shirt. But he's just not quite been at it. There's been quite a few times this season he's been quite good, but no, not really recently. And obviously Bruno Fernandes is going to play in the number 10 role. There's not really much choice. But Tom, what was your sort of thoughts on forward lines? Probably.
I think
like Rashford, etc.
Yeah,
Would you start things? I
think Rashford off the left. Probably Cavani through the middle if he's fit. And no reaction from yesterday. And then Dan James on the right. That will give us Greenwood as an option off the bench. But I think James's work rate is going to be absolutely crucial. We know how good City are and their fullbacks play like wingers, Cancelo and Walker. So I think James is going to start. Obviously, Rashford's a pretty much nailed on starter. I think he's going to go with Cavani through the middle, but I wouldn't mind seeing Greenwood given the minutes. But I think he'll probably go with the experience and almost work rate of Cavani.
Yeah, I think we need that United resurgence. What do you think?
I largely agree with the wingers. Dan James on the right, Marcus Rashford on the left. I think those two pick themselves. I think the one that I find tricky is the striker position. Cavani's just coming back from injury. I'm not sure if he's ready to play twice a week yet, so I wouldn't necessarily pick him. If he's fit, obviously go with him. He's our best striker. But if there's any doubt from the medical staff, I would say to Ollie, keep him on the bench. And then somewhat controversially and perhaps different to what I said last week, if he's fit, I think I'd go with Anthony Martial through the middle. The reason for that is just because I think Mason Greenwood is not offering us the same kind of outlet that we get through Martial, as far as kind of drifting and his ability on the ball, and he's not offering the physical benefits of Edinson Cavani. I really do think he's better as a winger right now, and so personally, I would go with either that option or potentially even go with Dan James on the left, Greenwood on the right, and Rashford through the middle. But I don't think I'd play Greenwood through the middle.
I see what you mean, but if you give Greenwood a chance, he's going to score it. But whereas Martial he's not been clinical at all this season. So I
then
think
go with Rashford through the middle. I think the only point I'm making is that I just wouldn't go with Mason Greenwood down the middle necessarily. I'm not saying don't play him. I'm just saying not down the middle. So yeah, that's the way that I look at it.
Okay, so Corey, what do you think? Would you play James or Greenwood up front, Cavani up front?
I don't know. Rashford definitely on the left. I think that's the go-to left winger. The right winger striker is debatable. If Martial, Cavani can play, I would like to say Martial, but it depends on what the fitness level is. Martial can come off the bench for uses what pace he has and what shooting he has. And on the right, we could use James because obviously he's got more pace than Greenwood does. I think because Greenwood started last match against Palace, so I think if we bring Greenwood on in the second half against City, I think that might benefit us rather than use Greenwood, who start against Palace and start him again for this match.
Yeah, fair enough.
And obviously Bruno through the middle.
Yeah, of course. United Apollo. What was your thoughts? James, Cavani, Greenwood. What do you think?
I think Rashford and James have to play both on Rashford on the left, James on the right. I think that they have to play. So James for his work rate is going to be huge in this game. And if he's fit, but I understand that is an if. I play Cavani. I think that then it's a case of there's two questions. We don't know if Martial's fit either. So yeah, the striker one is the tricky one. But yeah, if Cavani is fit, I'd start him.
I don't think there's a lot of doubt about what we do if Cavani is fit, but what do you think we should do if he's not? If say Martial and Greenwood are fit, who do you go with down the middle?
Probably Martial just for the experience. I know he's out of form, but it's probably the safer bet. Just in a situation where a big game like this, it's probably the safer choice.
Yeah, I think Ollie brought Cavani off early because he brought him off like 80 minutes, didn't he? I think he brought him off early because he knew that you'd want to save him for the City game. Because I was quite surprised when he came off, but thinking about it, I think it was probably the right decision because I didn't expect him to start against Crystal Palace, but it was sort of forced with Martial's injury.
I'm kind of glad he did start though, because
I was thinking, will he be back? But no, go on. I'm going to say.
I'm kind of glad that he did start because he didn't look sharp at all. He clearly needed some minutes in his legs after coming back from injury. So it's probably a good thing long term that he did start to get those minutes in his legs.
Yeah, I think that'll help him solve his, match sharpness because he's been out for a few weeks. But yeah, in terms of the lineup, I think everyone's had their say. I don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to sort of bring up. No, okay. I think we'll end it there then. Well, with predictions first. Corey, what was you saying about predictions?
I think it's either going to be a 1-0 for United or 0-0. I can't see more than one goal for us. I really can't.
United Apollo.
I'll go with a 1-1 draw.
United Resurgent.
Well, I think it's going to be a thumping 3-1 win for Manchester City, sadly.
Oh,
Oh,
you got me excited then.
I really don't see us winning this one. I think they're in such good form. It's not going to be particularly close.
I hate you.
Okay. And then finally, Tom, what do you think?
1-0. The smash and grab's finally going to work. So I think Greenwood, 85th minute winner. We're finally going to get that smash and grab that we've been looking for.
I think
Reece, what are you
there's a
saying?
decent chance of that because I think I agree with Tom. Yeah, if I'm going positive, to be honest, I think there's more chance sort of 0-0, 1-1. But if I'm going to be positive, I'm going to say 1-0, and we're going to sort of smash and grab it.
Now we're going to go penalty.
We're
Yeah,
due one after we didn't talk about that with the Chelsea match, but the Callum Hudson-Odoi handball. After that, the FA the Refereeing Association owes us a penalty just for breathing in the box at this point.
Oh yeah, how can I not say hit his hand? Handball.
yeah, I agree.
Specsavers.
So yeah, I think we'll end it there then. So thank you everyone for watching. Do give us a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and we'll see you soon.